Well, welcome. Tonight, we're going to have a discussion with one of the people that, if you don't know who he is, either has had, will have, or has a amazing effect on our kids and our lives. The principal of the high school. He is shepherding our kids at probably the most critical time of their lives as they get ready to become real people and have to go to college or go out and earn a living. So why don't we start with an introduction?
Okay, thanks, Al. My name is Josh Otland. I'm the principal over at the high school. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. I am privileged to be in my fourth year as the principal at Milford High School. I am a longtime member of our community. I grew up in Milford. My parents moved here a little bit before my first birthday, and I attended the Milford Public Schools from kindergarten all the way through all the way through the time that I graduated. So I'm a proud member of the class of 1996. And after I left Milford High School, I went up to Middlebury, Vermont, where I studied for 4 years and got my first teaching job immediately after college when I was 22, and haven't looked back since. And this is my 21st year working in public schools here in Massachusetts.
Well, your reputation here with the kids, with the parents, is all positive. So we're very happy to have you here.
Oh, thank God. We have a truly wonderful community that you know well. We're very, very fortunate to have a lot of great people here in Milford. Our students and families are tremendous, and the support that they provide to our schools is something that we're very, very grateful for all of us who are part of the Milford Public Schools. It's great to be part of the team and great to be part of the community.
It's always amazing because when I first brought my daughter to the school system, back then, the principal of Brookside, Jose Vieira, said something to me that stuck when I said, how do I get the most out of her education? And he said, be involved. And more profound words could not have been spoken.
Yeah, and it's never, it's never been wrong, but it's never been truer than right now. Our families today are being called upon to play a role in their students' education that really no generation of parents has been asked to play in recent times, where students are spending less time in the schoolhouse with their teachers than they ever have in recent memory. And so parental involvement and the involvement of the family right now in the student's education is of really paramount importance. So I think that advice that you received back when your daughter was very young holds true today, maybe now more so than ever.
So now we start, before we get into the scholarship talks, with what everybody wants to know. What's going on in the school today?
Yeah, well, what's going on today is our students are not coming into the building. We were really fortunate that we could bring the students into the school between September 10th and November 20th. And I'm extraordinarily grateful for the amazing cooperation of our students and our families to get through the enormous changes we had to put in place to bring the students back into school. And we had 2 great months in school. We really did, more than 2 great months. And since November 20th, that was a Friday, that was the last day that our students were in school, we've been in a full remote learning program since then. So Monday, November 23rd was the start of full remote learning in Milford Public Schools. And right now, we're not sure when we're going to be able to bring our students back into the school. The earliest possible date that we're going to return is Monday, January 4th. But whether or not we're going to come back on Monday the 4th, or whether it's going to be a later date, is probably not going to get decided for another few weeks. We hope to make that decision shortly before we break for our winter recess on December 23rd. But it's really going to depend on conditions at the time. The superintendent, the school committee, the Board of Health will be working together collaboratively to determine whether or not we can return to school on January 4th, or if that's going to be a later date. And when I say return to school, it's important to note that it's not a return to school, meaning that it's not a full return to school. So students will not be coming back to school to attend 5 days a week. We would be returning to what we're calling our hybrid format, which is what we used from September 10th through November 20th. And our hybrid format is one where our students come to school 2 days a week. Half of our students come on Monday and Tuesday. The other half come on Thursday and Friday. All of them attend online courses together on Wednesday morning. We have a small subset of our students with intellectual disabilities, who we were able to bring into the building 5 days a week. So whenever we get back, hopefully January 4th, but possibly later, it'll mean students coming back to school for 2 days in the building. And we're eager to get them back. In terms of what's going on right now, our students are meeting online with their teachers and their classmates 5 days a week. And that is, I think all things considered, it's going well. Our teachers have adapted remarkably well in an incredibly short period of time to figure out how to adapt their curriculum and instruction and assessment to operate in this remote environment. And I've been spending a lot of time observing classes in recent days, and I'm very, very pleased with the quality of instruction that I'm seeing. But if we had our preference, we'd like to get our students back in the building, even if just for 2 days a week. We've seen that it's where students belong. Even though being in school today is in some ways just a bizarre experience. It's still better than not being in school. And what I mean by bizarre is everyone's wearing masks all day. The desks are all in rows. The building's at about 40% of normal capacity. And the cafeteria tables have been replaced by desks that are in rows. We're leaving the building immediately after dismissal. Our extracurricular life is going on in a modified form, but there's no Friday night football games or basketball games or pep rallies or any of the wonderful traditions that that make social life at school so rich. So there's a lot that we're missing, but despite this really kind of bizarre experience of being back in the building, it's great to be in the building. It's great to see our students, and I think the level of cooperation that our students have exhibited with these tremendous changes is reflective of the fact that they want to be there too. We want them there, but they want to be there. I think all of us, students and teachers alike, have a newfound respect for something that maybe we used to take for granted. We just going to school 5 days a week was just how we did it, and now it seems it's this sort of precious thing that we want to get back so badly, and it's still a little bit out of reach.
How do parents cope? I mean, if you got high schoolers, your students, I can understand. They're old enough. You can leave them home during the day.
Yeah.
But what do you do when you've got young kids? You can't just tell a 7 or an 8-year-old, okay, honey, see you this afternoon. Have a good day at school.
No, there's no easy answers there. I can see in my own house, and I have a first grader, a fifth grader, and an eighth grader in my home. And my eighth grader and my fifth grader are able to operate with a very high level of independence. But the first grader, he needs a lot of support, and I think we're seeing some of the gaps between more privileged families and more disadvantaged families sort of worsening in some respects. We have some families where they have the opportunity for one, or in some cases both parents, to be home, to maybe be juggling their professional responsibilities of supporting their children, or maybe there's one parent who can dedicate themselves full time to supporting the children, where there's another who's working. There's other families where both parents are out of the house working during the day, and they may have extended family members, neighbors, older children who are trying to support the younger children in their work. It's not a good situation. I think one of the things that I have to continue to remind myself of, because we've been in this for a while now, and it's almost become this sort of new normal. I have to remind myself there's nothing normal about this. We are in the midst of a slow moving but terrible crisis, and this dilemma of how families try to attend to the needs of their younger children as they try to navigate school while the families are trying to pay their bills is excruciating. And it's not just younger children. We have older children who may have more significant learning disabilities. They may be learning English as a second language, and they too require a much higher level of support in order to be successful at school than other children. And it is, to be candid, it's heartbreaking that we're seeing children and families who are, struggling mightily right now to navigate this world of remote learning. We need to get our kids back in school at the end of the day, and we need to do it as fast as we can.
Now, I was reading in the Times that in a lot of places, school is the safest place to not catch COVID.
Yeah.
Is that because of all the precautions you take?
Well, I think the public health experts can certainly speak to that with a lot more authority than I can. I can say that school is a highly controlled and regulated environment. And so one of the things that I feel really good about our schools is I can say to any member of our community that is coming to our school is way safer than going to the supermarket or going to a restaurant. You go to a supermarket or a restaurant, they're asking everyone to follow a certain set of rules. Whether or not everyone cooperates is a different matter. In the schools, we have very high expectations for our staff and our students with regards to our safety protocols. We have, I'd say, pretty darn near close 100% compliance and cooperation. We've had a tiny handful of cases where we've had to intervene because community members have not been cooperative, but it's been extraordinarily low. So, everyone, I think, the masking, the hygiene, the distancing, the cleaning that we have in place, I think that whole package has, created a scenario where schools by and large are safe. I think the dilemma that we confront right now is we don't really know the extent to which schools are safe once we start seeing the levels of infection in the community get high where they are now. So I think we proved pretty clearly in the fall that when the levels of infection in the community was at what we might call sort of a low simmer, we could have the students in school and there was no reason to believe that people were getting sick in school. Once we started jumping up to positivity rates in excess of 5%, incidence rates, that sort of that rolling average getting up over 30. Now we started getting to uncharted terrain, and now it becomes less clear whether or not we can continue to sort of do this safely, and it became, riskier. So, for the folks, the Board of Health agents, the superintendents, the school committee members out there, I think these are the toughest decisions these folks have had to make in their careers. There's, everyone appreciates the urgent need to get our students back into school. And at the same time, everyone understands that just because we're able to do it safely when those infections were at a low simmer doesn't mean we can do it safely today. I mean, we can see very clearly the situation both in the Commonwealth and nationally. I think it's fair to characterize it as out of control right now. And so, if we can get the levels back down to where we were in September and October, I think we know that we can do that safely. If we're going to try to come back to school with the levels where they are now, there's going to be a degree of risk there. And I think it's hard to estimate exactly how risky it is.
Well, I mean, think about even you and I. We have the option of going into the Milford TV studio. Two people, well-behaved, going to follow all the compliance rules. But, the first thing when I changed over from in studio to all virtual was that we want to support our Board of Health.
Mm-hmm.
When the Milford Town Board of Health says, we'd really like you not to do this, it would feel kind of strange to go against them.
Yeah.
But then you sit there and say, all it takes is one. I worry about the one child that comes in,
Mm-hmm.
and part of the community, I think everybody wants to do the right thing, but you've got groups of kids like the special needs kids who might break the rules without knowing.
Yeah.
When I had Special Olympic soccer, they were the most obedient, wonderful children I've ever coached.
Mm-hmm.
If they weren't doing what they're supposed to, it never seemed that they were doing that to lash out or, for any other reasons. They just didn't understand.
Yeah. And I think, along those lines, one of the challenges that we face now that infection rates are high is I think there was a time back in the fall where if someone were to contract COVID, I think you could say, well, they must not have been following the rules, right?
Yeah.
They must have been making some risky choices. But today, I believe that we're seeing a lot of people getting sick in their homes. A family member's sick, they go into quarantine, the family quarantines, you now have home-based transmission. So I think my understanding right now is that we're also seeing a lot of people getting sick and they're frankly not able to identify where they contracted the virus or where they got exposed. So, once the prevalence of the virus gets high enough in the community, it becomes difficult to pinpoint where people are getting sick. And once sickness starts coming into the homes in significant numbers, it's difficult to prevent people from getting sick in their homes when there's a family member there and they're living in close quarters. So,
Well, I remember when my daughter got the pox, and she got chicken pox. I've never had chicken pox, so I didn't believe I had it. And my wife came in and looked at me and said, "You're out of your mind." Because my daughter was curled up under my arm. He says, "You know what's going to happen." I said, "Yeah, but how do I say go away to my daughter?"
Yeah.
So I can see your point that once it gets in the house, especially if it's a child,
Hmm.
you're going to get it.
Yeah. Or conversely, especially, if you imagine a scenario, you have a single parent household and that parent gets sick, how's that parent going to prevent her children from being exposed if they're dependent upon her for, food, transportation, support with their schoolwork, laundry, et cetera. So, I think, we've reached a very complicated and difficult stage of this pandemic. And it's, it seems like it's going to get a little worse before it gets better.
And like you say, you may not be breaking the rules. Okay, we're not going to go to big parties. I'm not going to be walking around without a mask on. All the obvious things. When H1N1 came around, Mike Newstein from the medical center had a basic message: wash your hands, cover
Mhm.
your cough. It was so basic and simple, but yet
Mhm.
it spread.
Right.
So, you bring up a single parent. I don't understand. God bless them, how when we had our two daughters, there was 3 against 2. So it was almost even. I
Yeah.
had my sainted mother, my darling bride, and I, and only 2 children to watch. When I see some of these single mothers and fathers who have a couple kids, I don't know how they can cope.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of heroic stories out there. There's a lot of folks whose, the dedication that they exhibit for their children, their stamina, their persistence in the face of really intense hardship. It's humbling, you know.
Now, I
Um,
went down to the Milford Youth Center and I saw they have a remote learning set up,
mhm.
which I thought was fantastic
Yeah.
because not everybody can afford to hire a nanny or take time out of work. I'm going to take 8 months off. Will you
Mhm.
still pay me? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's wonderful to, have community organizations like the Milford Youth Center that are really reinventing themselves to find ways to better support families and students during this time. And that's what it's going to take for us to get through this. It's going to take kind of all hands on deck and everyone trying to think about where they can contribute. And we're so fortunate to be in a community where there's a lot of civically minded folks and there's a lot of good people who are they're asking themselves that question: what can I do? How can I contribute? And they're taking action, and it's making a tremendous difference right now. And
Where do
we're gonna need more of that.
where do parents go? Who do they call when they have questions?
Mhm. So we're fortunate that we actually have a number of different supports in place in the Milford community. And I'd say for parents that are in the Milford Public Schools, we've sent out very recently sort of a 2-page document in English, Portuguese, and Spanish that's outlining different community resources that are available. But I'd say really simply, if there's a family that's looking for support, all they need to do is to reach out to anyone in the schools. It can be a teacher, it can be an administrative assistant, it can be a teacher assistant, and they'll get that up to either the counseling staff or the principal in the building, and then we can work to help connect families to different resources that are available in the community. But we are fortunate to be in a community that has a lot of organizations that are well equipped right now to be supporting families. We can't, I think we don't want to overstate it. We can't. There's no organization out there that can solve all of the taxing challenges facing families right now. But families definitely don't need to do it alone. We've got a lot of organizations, everyone from Wayside Family Services, Catholic Charities, Milford Food Pantry, Milford Youth Center, United Way, Hockomock YMCA, Milford Public Schools. We have a lot of there's a pretty solid organizational infrastructure in place right now to help families that are facing challenges that they need some help with.
And it's amazing how everybody rallies. You
Mhm.
know, during the cold months before the pandemic, we were at a connections meeting at the high school, and a lady walked in with 3 children, and she had walked from one end of Milford to the other with 3 young children in the
Mhm.
cold.
Mhm.
And turns out she needed help. I mean, I was amazed that the kids were hungry. They saw snacks. They're kids.
Hmm.
So we threw all our change together and wiped out the snack machine you had and
Hmm.
gave them all the granola bars and stuff we could. And she was so appreciative. And
Yeah.
then we found out the kids didn't have coats. Well, Lisa Kincaid found a stash of coats
Hmm.
that she keeps for occasions like this when a Milford family needs help.
Yeah.
And it went on and on and on. Not
Hmm.
that we made a huge difference, but every little bit.
Yeah, no, it all accumulates, right? So I mean, if we've got, if everyone's doing a little bit, it adds up really quickly to making a tremendous difference across the community. And frankly, one of the ways that people can make a difference right now is if they know of neighbors in need, they can help those neighbors reach out to the schools to let them know that they need help. There's a lot of folks who, for I think reasons we can all empathize with, are reluctant to ask for help. Um, but that's why we're here, and we're fortunate that we're in a position where we can offer it. So, and I'd say to anyone who's watching this right now, you don't need to be able to solve all the problems in the world, but if you do know of a neighbor or a friend who's in need of assistance right now, please do encourage them to reach out to their children's schools so we can try to spring into action and mobilize some resources to help them out.
Yeah, and I think coming from the schools, it's a whole different it's a whole different approach. I mean, I grew up with you. We're friends.
Hmm.
We've gone through all the different stages of life, and now I'm in trouble.
Hmm.
It feels funny to go to you and
Hmm.
say, I need a coat for my daughter.
Yeah, yeah.
But if the school brought it up,
Hmm.
it's more, it's not directed. I'm not dealing with you, who I know is a good friend, who I may be
Hmm.
embarrassed,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So, somebody like Lisa coming through with coats was a
Hmm.
wonderful, wonderful gesture to this mother.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would also encourage viewers, in terms of if you know of neighbors in need, we're very fortunate in the Milford Public Schools to have a pretty deep team of folks that speak Portuguese, Spanish, and we also have Arabic interpreters as well. So we know that linguistic barriers can be a big hurdle to clear for families that are trying to access services and help. And so I think we've got a lot of resources to bear on the linguistic side, and that's something we're very grateful for.
How, before we get on to the actual topic of tonight,
Mhm.
how's the morale of the teachers? I mean, we're
Uh,
asking them to do two jobs.
yeah.
We're putting them, I don't want to say in harm's way, but
Mhm.
boy, we're telling everybody else, stay home, shelter, do everything you can to isolate, except
Mhm.
you people. You
Yeah.
get out there in the middle of everybody.
Yeah.
How they doing?
Well, I mean, I think there's a few different dimensions to it. We can generalize. Not everyone's having the same experience right now, but I'd say in general, teachers are pretty exhausted. I see a lot of my colleagues who are highly skilled veteran educators who've been doing this work for 10, 15, 20 years, and I think they're probably working harder now than they have at any point in their career. Um, and that's tough. I think it's also challenging for teachers right now, and I think it's been discouraging for some teachers that they are working as hard, if not harder, than they've worked in their careers, and they don't feel like they're getting the results that they're accustomed to getting in terms of their students learning right now. They're not feeling as effective as they have in the past because working with students remotely and seeing students 2 days a week, this is not the equivalent of seeing students in your classroom 5 days a week. So we've got teachers working harder than ever, but they're not seeing the level of achievement and growth in their students that they're accustomed to. And I think that's discouraging. On the other hand, I think that our teachers rightfully take a lot of pride in the role that they're playing in the community right now. And I think our teachers, I think it's something of a badge of honor to be a teacher right now. I think I'd like to say like to think that teaching is always a noble profession, but I think our society very broadly has I think a renewed respect for teachers now that maybe wasn't there in the not too distant past. And I think that teachers rightfully take some pride in the work that they're doing and the way that they've risen to the challenge right now. Teachers have had to reinvent what they do in an incredibly rapid period of time. And I can say that my colleagues at the high school have done an absolutely extraordinary job with that. And I'm very, very proud to be part of the team and part of what's happening there. So in terms of the morale, I think it's mixed. I think people are exhausted. I think there's a little bit of discouragement. And the other hand, I think that there's, I think there's some pride, and I think there's also some excitement at the fact that we have been able to retool our operations so quickly and in many respects, pretty successfully. And I think that's been edifying for folks to see that, this, if we just go back to the summer months, the idea that we were going to open school seemed insurmountable, right? And we did it, and I think that's something that a lot of us took a lot of satisfaction in. And I think for our teachers, the idea that they were going to have to try to adapt their teaching and instruction to this new remote environment and this crazy hybrid schedule seemed insurmountable, and they've done it, and so I think there's a lot of reward in that as well. But
Well,
our teachers miss our students. I'll tell you that, Al. Like they want these kids back. There's some fear of exposure, right? And there's some fear of the risk. But at the same time, everyone is in this business because they like working with young people. And working with young people on the computer is okay, but it's not the same as working with them in person.
well, we are obviously biased towards Milford, and I'll admit I am, but the old saying that adversity builds character. I think our teachers prove that the updated saying that no, it doesn't. It demonstrates character. Because I remember one of the big crises we had many years ago was massive budget cuts, and I read in the paper how certain towns around us, their teachers had agreed to delay their raises and get them retroactively later, which made no sense to me because if I can't afford to pay it now, how am I going to afford to pay twice? And our teachers, led by the union, which really, really had an effect on me, that the teachers union came to the FinCom and said, we will forego our raise if you promise all that money you save goes into saving teachers. I was stunned.
Yeah. And Al, I think, along a similar vein, I mean, something that it's not exactly sort of broadly known in the community, but I think folks who pay attention know that there's many communities in the Commonwealth who were not able to open their schools at all, or not able to open the doors to their schools as early as we did or as successfully as we did. And that there was a lot of contentious battles that took place between teachers unions and school committees and administrations in many communities in the Commonwealth. And here in Milford, our Teachers Association, I think, demonstrated tremendous leadership in really being a partner in the process of figuring out how we're going to open the schools and do this safely. And I think this is, you're absolutely right that adversity is a time when character is displayed. And our teachers, I think, were very, frankly, I don't think it's an exaggeration, very courageous in their willingness to work together with our, elected officials and, with the management team to figure out how we're going to do this. And, they wanted to be part of the solution, and they very much were and have been part of the solution, which we're so grateful for their partnership in that.
So we're getting to the time of year when reality hits. That, okay, I've gotten into the school I want, hopefully to all the schools. And I've always said, I'm not your judge. The townspeople in Milford are not the judge of how well of a job you're doing educating our children. The colleges are. Because if you're not doing a good job, then our kids are getting into Humpty Dumpty Community College only. When I see the quality, the Ivy League schools, the baby Ivies, all the colleges that our kids are getting accepted to and graduating, not just getting in, but doing well.
Yeah.
Then I tip my hat to the high school and all the feeder schools, because you are doing a good job. The one thing you can't really do a lot of is finance. So now all of a sudden, I mean, I was amazed. I had a discussion with the president of Holy Cross where I told him that I thought he was not being fair when he used the word, gave us a nice letter telling us because of all the things they're doing to save money, they're only raising the fees, tuition and all to $68,000 next year. I said, the word only and 68,000, those are words that shouldn't be in the same sentence as far as I'm concerned. But
Absolutely.
we look now, and there are opportunities to nibble away at that 68 or 32, depending on what school. But even a UMass, you got to be talking 30 grand by the time you're done with tuition and fees and schmees and bees and all the stuff they throw in. It's still 30 grand a year.
Right.
If we look at financial aid as a separate issue, but let's look at a tactical source of income, scholarships.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think, Al, you're talking about this, families that are looking to support their students in pursuing higher education need to consider affordability as I think a really primary and central factor in thinking about what that plan is going to look like and where students should attend if they're going on for higher education. And affordability, as you said, there's a bunch of different pieces to it. The sort of the what we might call the sticker price that the college or university charges, the financial aid options that are available through the private institutions, and then scholarships are an important part of the affordability package as well. And that's what we'll kind of focus on this evening is scholarships. So it's exciting that there are some tremendous scholarship opportunities available to students right here locally in our community. So the Milford High School for many, many years, going back to when I graduated from high school, has worked cooperatively with local families, local foundations, local businesses to have a pretty impressive menu of scholarships that are awarded at the local level that are just for Milford students. And so last year alone, we had over $85,000 in scholarships that were awarded by local organizations in competitions that's only for Milford High School students. There's no other students competing for these scholarships. In addition to those scholarships where it's only Milford students competing for that sort of pool of $85,000+ in scholarships, then there's a much larger group of scholarships that are available regionally, at the state level, nationally, that our students can compete for. So every year in the United States of America, there are literally hundreds of millions of dollars of scholarship funds up for grabs. And you can't grab them unless you reach out and try. So I'd love to tell you and the audience tonight a little bit about sort of how that process works, and hopefully that's going to help some of our students and families take advantage of some of these great opportunities.
That'd be great. I mean, one of the things that, as we've worked with kids, we suggested they start looking junior year. And that was always just my idea, that better to practice when it doesn't count.
Yeah, and I think there's if you're going to be serious about trying to use scholarships as one part of the affordability pie, you need to do some scouting. The local scholarships that we offer here in Milford, that $85,000 plus, it's up for grabs. That doesn't require scouting. We're really going to kind of serve it up on a platter. We make that process of identifying the scholarships and applying to the scholarships. I think it's a pretty light lift for students and families. But when you want to start looking beyond what we offer here in Milford to the scholarships that are available regionally, statewide, and nationally, that's going to take some legwork. Our counselors are here to assist our students. We have some excellent databases that can help to facilitate that research. It's a lot easier now than it was, say, 20 years ago to conduct this kind of research. Nonetheless, many scholarship competitions are highly specialized, right? Whether it might be a labor union who is offering scholarships to students that are looking to pursue a very specific, professional pathway, or it might be a corporation and it's only the children of employees that are eligible to compete for that corporation. There's a lot of niche scholarships out there, and I think identifying which niche scholarships a student may be sort of a bona fide candidate for is going to take some legwork. So I think starting that process in junior year can be very advantageous for students, because when they get into senior year, particularly in the fall, it's going to be all hands on deck with completing the finalizing the schools that they're going to apply to, completing the applications, doing all the financial aid applications, which, at a minimum is going to be your FAFSA. Many students will do what's called the CSS profile, which is going to be a big lift for students and families to complete. FAFSA is pretty easy. CSS profile is a pretty big deal. So I think if you can take that scouting phase of the scholarship process, kind of put that in the junior year as much as possible, that's going to help students and families stay focused on applications and financial aid in the fall of their senior year. Fortunately, in terms of the way that timelines work, at least both with the Milford scholarships, but a lot of scholarships that happen regionally and nationally, is there sort of time to have those applications due after the college applications. So most students are done submitting their college applications sometime between Thanksgiving and Christmas. The majority of the applications are out the door at that point. Most scholarship deadlines are coming up sometime in January, February, March. And so that's done deliberately so that students and families can focus on financial aid and applications in the fall, and then the winter months they can turn their attention towards the scholarship competitions. But definitely junior year, there's work to be done in scouting out opportunities outside of our local offerings.
Yeah, and I just like the idea that senior year, like you say, you're busy picking schools, trying to do all the applications and everything, and being a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember that it's a senior year in high school. They should have some time to enjoy themselves.
Absolutely.
If they can get a heads up on where to look and then start junior year, and it amazes me because our kids will work hard for $10 an hour, slinging burgers, doing whatever. But then it's like a chore to apply for $1,000 scholarship. But you think about how many hours you have to put in to net $1,000.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that can sometimes discourage students from putting in the time and energy to apply for scholarships is frankly a misconception that scholarships are really only there for the top few students, and that's not the case. So there are, whether it's our local scholarships or whether it's regional and national scholarships, funders are often, they're really trying to target a very sort of like narrow band of students. And if a student has frankly done poorly in high school, they're probably not going to be a bona fide contender for scholarships. However, if a student is,
colleges that need scholarships,
or for colleges with selective admissions. But if a student has done well enough in high school to compete at a college with moderately selective admissions, there's going to be some scholarships out there that they're going to be competitive for. Now, that's not to say that they're going to rack up thousands of dollars in scholarships, but I mean, $500 or $600 is a lot better than $0. And as you said, if I can spend, let's say, a sum total of 10 hours working on scholarship applications, and that 10 hours can yield $600 in scholarships, that's $60 an hour. That's a pretty good return on your time investment. So it is important for families and students to understand that scholarships are not the exclusive domain of the top 10% of the class or the top 5 students in the class,
or the bottom 10% of financial need either.
Correct.
Because I hear that a lot, that I'll never fit in because I'm middle of the road. I'm not financially totally challenged, and I'm not academically brilliant.
Right. Yeah, and I think, Al, you raise an important point in scholarships, in that for some scholarships, financial need is criteria that the funder uses in establishing who's eligible to compete, whereas there's other scholarships where your financial need has nothing to do with the competition. So there's sometimes our students whose families, I think, are relatively speaking sort of well off, and they're not going to qualify for financial aid. They're going to be asked to pay sort of full price at the colleges, and that can be frankly unattainable. There are some families that sit kind of right on the borders, right? They earn a little more than the cutoff for financial aid, but not so much that they can truly afford to pay that sort of extraordinarily high price of tuition. And so I think sometimes those students operate under the misconception that I'm not really going to be eligible for scholarships because I don't have the same kind of financial need that some other students in the community have. And again, it's not that simple, right? There's some scholarships that they're looking at financial need as a major factor in awarding scholarships. There's other scholarships where financial need doesn't even come into the decision whatsoever.
And I think what you started saying is profound. There's enough out there that if you look, you're probably going to find a number of scholarships you qualify for.
Mhm.
Whether you're very well off financially or very financially challenged,
Mhm.
whether you're the top 10% of your class or you're in the middle.
Mhm.
I mean, how many scholarships? Let's just take Milford High,
Mhm.
local scholarship, 85 grand. That's a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
How many scholarships are there?
So let me just run that down for you real quickly. We have, so that the 85,000 that we gave out last year, it was 126 awards. There's some scholarships that will award multiple students. They'll give out 2 or 3 scholarships a year. Most of our scholarships are one. So we gave out 126 unique awards at the local level last year that totaled over $85,000. And so my guess, I don't have a firm number for you, but I'd guess in our graduating class each year that there's probably somewhere between 20 to 30% of the graduating class who are winning at least one local scholarship.
But Josh, if I do the math right,
Mhm.
that's 1 out of every 3 kids.
Mhm.
You know, I like those odds.
That's
If
right.
I
Yeah.
look nationally, I'm not competing with 2 other kids for a scholarship.
That's right. Those 126 awards that we gave out last year, 126 scholarships. These aren't certificate awards. These are cash scholarships. Those 126 scholarships, that was within a graduating class of, I think, 273. So
So it's
that's,
closer to 40%.
yeah, yeah. You have some students who rack up a bunch. You might have some of the top students in the class might pull in anywhere between 5 to 8 unique scholarships, and you'll have a lot of students that are pulling 1 or 2. But again, my guess is that those 126 scholarships are probably going to somewhere around 30% of the graduates in the class. So there's a lot to go around.
And again, it comes down to $1,000, or even your $600 example. At
Mhm.
$10 an hour, figure
Mhm.
out how many hours and weeks I have to work
Mhm.
to net out that much money.
Yeah, and I think another thing that's important to consider today is um, the application process is very streamlined compared to what it used to be. So, when I graduated from high school, it's gonna be the 25th anniversary of my high school graduation. I graduated in '96. And when I was applying for scholarships back in 25 years ago, um, it was, typing out a unique essay and application for each scholarship and, doing the postage and mailing them off. And I mean, now our students can, when they apply for our local scholarships, they are writing one essay. They are indicating which scholarships that they'd like to compete for, and they do it online and it's done, right? So a student can literally apply for 10, 15, 20 local scholarships, just one spell. And for students who are going to apply for scholarships outside of the school, whether they be regional or national scholarships, just like college applications, there's only so many variations on essay prompts that scholarship committees are going to have students respond to. So oftentimes the essay that students are writing as part of one of their college applications is something that can be edited and revised to fit into a particular scholarship application. So even if a student's going to apply to 30 unique scholarships, they're not actually submitting 30 unique applications, right? Most of those applications are going to be pretty similar, and so I think the time that it takes to apply to a lot of scholarships is pretty modest, especially compared to what it was, even as little as 10 or 15 years ago.
But now, of those 100 odd scholarships, 129 a year,
Mm.
how many of them change? You mentioned you may get 2 or 3 new ones a year.
Mhm.
So that feels like 90 odd percent of them are the same every year.
Yeah, they are. I mean, we're so fortunate in Milford that many of our local scholarships, I think the vast majority of our local scholarships are endowed funds, where there is a family or a civic organization that has established a fund and they've seeded it with enough money they can operate either in perpetuity or really over the long term. It speaks to the incredible generosity of people in our community that they've made this investment in graduates of Milford High School over the long term. So we have I can't give you a number, but I'm confident that many of the scholarships that we will award this year to the class of 2021, we awarded 25 years ago when I graduated in 1996. There's a lot of foundations and organizations that have made an incredibly long-term commitment to the graduates of Milford High School.
So now, where do I start to look? I'm a
Mhm.
parent. It's my money
Mhm.
that's going to go out in most
Yeah.
cases,
Mhm.
or at least partly my money.
Mhm.
I have some skin in this game. I want to know
Yeah.
what's available. Even if my
Mhm.
son or daughter aren't as excited about it, I'm going to be, because that
Mhm.
$600 does not come out of my pocket then.
Right. Yeah. So for our local scholarships, again, we make this pretty easy. We kind of serve it up on a platter. So for families that are watching right now, if you have a senior in the graduating class, we will be sending out emails to both the students and to our families in the class of 2021, probably either just before winter break or just after winter break, announcing all of the local scholarships that our students are eligible to compete for in the application process. So we're going to make that pretty easy for you. If you have not yet started the process of looking for external scholarships, either you're in a senior class or maybe you've got a student who's a junior and you're saying, all right, I want to start the scouting prospect. Our number one resource is Naviance. And so Naviance it's an online subscription database that we purchase through the Milford Public Schools. You're going to find it at the vast majority of public and private high schools in the United States of America. It's kind of the industry standard. And it's a very robust database that it can be used for a variety of purposes, college search, financial aid planning, interest inventories, and also scholarship searches. So Naviance is a very powerful search engine that's going to allow students to identify scholarships and use filters that helps them really identify kind of those different niches where they can be most competitive. And if students or families need assistance accessing their Naviance account, if they need a password reset, or if they're not familiar with Naviance, then the best source of information is the student's guidance counselor. They can help both get you access to Naviance, but also provide sort of the expertise and coaching and sort of how to use it. So whether it's scholarships, college applications, financially, the guidance counselors always should be the first stop for the family. And if any of our families out there watching saying, I don't know who my student's counselor is, or I don't know how to get in touch with the counselor, you can contact me, you can call the school, speak to any one of our administrative assistants. They can look up, identify your student's guidance counselor, and give them a message to have them call you or send you an email. So even if you're not sure who the counselor is, you're not sure how to get in touch, don't worry about that. Just reach out to anyone at the school and we can help you get connected.
Yeah, and I remember what a role my guidance counselor, 1974 Milford High, good old Dr. Salvia, who decided I should go to Holy Cross. I had no idea what a Holy Cross was, but he knew. And once I got there, I fell in love with the place. And it was because of just going to him saying, I don't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
And our guidance counselors have kept that tradition alive.
Yeah. This is what they do. It's what they're passionate about. They love helping students and families figure out how to be successful at this next stage. These are all advanced professionals with advanced degrees. We have a very experienced bench of counselors. They bring a lot to the table. And we also have, it's important to note, we have 2 bilingual and 1 trilingual guidance counselors on staff. So we're very fortunate. We have a lot of families who need native language support in Portuguese and Spanish, and I'm very thankful that we're able to offer that to them.
So now I can go to Naviance, and that's going to show me the 129 options I have. And some of them, you're being very kind when you say aren't as competitive. For many decades, the class of 74 had a scholarship, still does, for children of class members of the class of 74.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
right.
there could be 1 child applying.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're competing against nobody. There's a very good chance you're getting the scholarship. Or if there's only 2 applying.
Right.
So you've got, like you say, if you take a look and it's somebody set up a scholarship for Portuguese descendants who want to study chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
The odds are pretty good if you're a Portuguese descendant or an Italian son of an immigrant who wants to study, Renaissance art. If there's a scholarship there, there's a good chance. But
yeah,
there's more too.
Yeah, there is. And so just a point of clarification, Naviance is not the tool that families would use to identify our local scholarships, right?
Oh, okay.
We're going to get that right to you via email. We're going to send that direct to the students, direct to the families. Naviance would be if you want to try to identify scholarships that operate on the regional or the national level. So the local scholarships that where it's only Milford High School students competing, you're only competing against the other students in your graduating class. We're going to serve that right up to the parents and the students. Naviance is if you want to say, hey, I want to go out and compete against graduates from Medway High School, Bellingham High School, Halston High School, Los Angeles, California, Miami, right? Naviance is going to help you identify scholarships that are operating at that scale.
Well, I remember my daughter found out with Naviance or somewhere that Target offered a scholarship to local kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in my mind, I said, Target? That's nationwide. There's going to be, a gazillion kids applying.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out they did it locally, like,
Mm-hmm.
the local Milford Target store.
Right.
And she got $1,000 from Target. I mean, they got my loyalty, but, you sit there and say, if she hadn't been anxious to look for scholarships,
Mm-hmm.
she wouldn't have known that Target offers one. And $1,000 is a lot of money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and there's a lot of opportunities out there, very similar to that. I think you're going to be hard pressed to find a major national scale corporation that doesn't offer scholarships. It's pretty standard that you're going to find big name corporations that have established foundations and scholarships are just one part of the charitable work that they do. But in addition to sort of corporate foundations that exist, there's just all manner of civic organizations, labor groups, philanthropies out there that are offering scholarships of every conceivable variety. Al, one that I'd like to mention, you're just talking a minute ago about how the competition for some of these scholarships is really quite limited because the specifications of the scholarship are quite narrow. I had the honor last year of working to help establish a memorial scholarship in honor of Al DeFonso. Al was a well-loved teacher by many generations of Milford High School students. One of my teachers is a math teacher, math department head at Milford High School for many years. And so we worked with his family and his former colleague, Bill DeVita, last year to establish a scholarship in his honor. And that scholarship is awarded to a student who has demonstrated excellence in mathematics and in character, and who's attending UMass Amherst, which was Al's alma mater. And so again, we're getting pretty narrow, right? It's only Milford graduates who can compete for it. It's only Milford graduates who decide that they're going to go to UMass Amherst. And of Milford graduates who are going to UMass Amherst, it's students who've really excelled in mathematics, right? So that's going to be a fairly narrow competition, and that's $1,000, right? So, I could sort of, we'll be sharing this information with families and students, but most of our awards are targeted in a fairly narrow way like that, where, if you say, hey, that's me, I can compete for that scholarship. You're not going to be competing against 274 other students in your class. You're probably going to be competing against anywhere from maybe 2 to 15 members of your class at most.
So now, if I'm a junior parent, can I contact the school and say, can I look at that email?
Yeah, certainly. Yep. If families want to get an advanced look at what the local scholarship options are, you're welcome to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to share that with you. We maintain a pretty comprehensive database of all of our awards and scholarships that we provide at the local level. And Al, I just want to give a count earlier. I told you that we provided 126 awards last year. And that was for 89 different scholarships. Again, some of them will award 2 or 3 in a year. So we have 89 local scholarships. They are unique to Milford High School. No one competes except for Milford High School students. 89 scholarships given out, 126 unique awards worth over $85,000.
But you only have 300 kids.
We typically graduate a little less than 300. Yeah, we're
I'm saying 260 kids for even 90 scholarships.
Yeah.
I'm competing with 2 other kids.
That's right. You can't hit the ball unless you swing. So, go out, step up to the plate and give it a shot.
The odds is you become a real person and get out. If I want a job, I'm going to compete against more than 2 other ladies or gentlemen. So, either way, the local scholarships just seem like duck soup. You ought to just do them.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I
So
don't know of any people who, I'd love to have friends who consider, $5,000 a month paying for tuition in school trivial.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
of too many of that.
No, no. And now something that, something I'd also like to share with your audience on this point is, while we are incredibly grateful to have so much to offer our students, we really can never offer enough because of, as you said at the outset, the affordability challenge for families is a really intense challenge. And so if anyone's watching this and you're interested in establishing an award that could be given out, you can reach out to me individually. I'd be happy to guide you through that process. It's relatively painless. Most of our scholarships are being awarded for probably less than $500 a year. So we definitely have some scholarships that are going for $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, but the vast majority of our awards are somewhere probably in that $250 to $500 range. And so I think there's a lot of families out there that would say, look, we'd love to maybe offer a scholarship in memory of a family member or to promote students who are pursuing education in a field that we're passionate about and that we want to encourage. And you might say, like, there's no way I could fund a scholarship for $1,000 in perpetuity. But you might say, you know what, we would love to do something for $250 for the next 5 or 10 years. Great, let's do it, right? So if there's anyone in the community who's interested in working with us to bring additional opportunities available to our students, we'd love to work with you to help try to connect you and your resources to deserving students for whom it can make a big difference. And
And that's a great point because I'm not signing up for timeshare. It's not for the rest of my life.
no, no,
If I have a little bit of coin that I could throw for a couple of years, 3, 4, 5 years,
hmm
you think about, and again, when you're looking at $68,000 bill coming your way, that $500 or $300, boy,
it
that,
helps.
when I saw that $1,000 come in, when I saw a couple $500 come in,
hmm
that felt better when I started thinking I got to come up with $1,000 a week now to pay for Holy Cross.
Yeah, it's also I'd like to share with folks who might be considering funding either now or sometime in the future that our funders can be as involved in the selection process as they would wish, and they can be completely separated from the selection process. In fact, the vast majority of our funders are not involved in the selection process. They trust that to our team, and we're happy to take care of that for them. They establish the criteria, whatever criteria they want, and then we will honor that criteria and we will do our best to select a deserving student who meets that criteria. We have other funders who they want to do the selection, and so they want the applications to come to them. They might want to do a blind process where you strike out the names, or sometimes they want to do it with the names on. So it's completely up to funders, however they'd like to
Well,
proceed.
it sounds like you
Um,
can be as involved, not as involved. You can have a lot of money or very limited money.
mhm,
The key is to get a hold of you and get it started because there certainly are enough Milford kids who need help.
absolutely, absolutely.
Well, thank you for opening our eyes both to what's going on and hopefully to how to get some money for the kids.
Uh, my pleasure, Al. Thank you for the opportunity, and be well and stay safe.
Good night. And to our 6 loyal viewers, as always, may God bless. May tomorrow be a better day than today. Good night, all. Thanks for joining.
Okay, good night.
Far too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just